My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality-Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life.
Dan, as you know, we are in the midst of a government shutdown. It's seemingly affecting many people. Can you talk about what the biggest implications from a financial planning perspective are?
Well, as far as the politics of it, because there's going to be a couple different aspects of this, but from a political perspective, the dispute to a large extent has to do with subsidies on the health insurance exchange. And from our perspective as financial advisors, almost anybody we help that is retiring prior to age 65, health insurance is one of their primary concerns. But what do I do? How do I get health insurance until I qualify for Medicare? And subsidies a few years ago, they were like a cliff. So a married couple who was maybe 62 years old, they're retiring, they have to like bridge across until they get to Medicare. If we could keep their income at a certain percentage of the poverty rate, and for a married couple back then it was like $66,000 or something like that. If we could keep them under that amount, keeping in mind they're not working anymore, so maybe they have a pension, maybe they have Social Security, maybe they're taking money from their IRA, but if we can artificially keep them in that level, they could get substantial subsidies on the Affordable Care Act and make their health insurance affordable. That's how the Affordable Care Act worked. But if you went over by a dollar, you lost your subsidies. So from a planning perspective, it was a dangerous level to deal with, because if they had income that they just didn't think about, like interest on their savings account or capital gains on their brokerage account, or maybe they got some inheritance, they might go over by just a little bit and lose a whole bunch of health insurance subsidies. Well, then under the Biden administration, they said, okay, that cliff doesn't really make a lot of sense. And we want to build out the pool of insureds in the system. So they expanded subsidies. And now, like today, if we're doing planning for that same couple, they could make all the way up to like $200,000 of gross income, and then they'll lose their subsidies. So somebody making 120,000 or 150,000, and imagine they're retired, so that's a high income for a retiree. If they're making that amount, they were still getting thousands and thousands of dollars per year in subsidies. So that's the debate here. It's not the debate of like losing subsidies entirely. It's the debate of like that expanded subsidy role. Should that be like brought back to what it was originally designed in the Affordable Care Act? And I don't really have an answer to what that should be, but that's really the debate that's leading to this government shutdown. And it really is impacting our planning as we're sitting here talking to people retiring right now, planning for insurance maybe starting January 1st, and we have no idea what to tell them about potential subsidies.
I know. First of all, I'm glad that you brought up that subsidies are not completely going away. I think that is a misconception that a lot of people have. Even one that I had at one point, that all subsidies were going away. So I think that is great that you were able to clarify that it's just going back to the original design. But like you said, this is a conversation we have on a regular basis with our clients. This is top of mind for many of the people who we serve. Health insurance is typically a barrier between should I retire or should I not. In the perspective of our clients, they want to know that they'll be able to afford health insurance in retirement. So, like you said, we don't know when all of this will be resolved. We don't know what to tell them because of that. So, how are you approaching that with clients?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're actually getting to the point of where it's almost too late for anything to happen, which means if nothing happens, it goes back to what it was, because those expanded subsidies were considered temporary. And so, from a planning perspective, we have to assume that a lot of our retirees might lose their subsidies, which means, potentially increasing their retirement costs by several hundred, if not, $800, $900 a month of increased costs that they were getting through the exchange. And I think you're going to see more people looking into like alternative types of health insurance. We'll see people bring up like there's these Christian cooperative health insurance plans. We don't know a lot about those. They don't qualify for subsidies. But I think you're going to see more and more people looking at this system and saying, what are my options? But for right now, when I'm meeting for reviews, I'm taking the approach that we have to assume those subsidies are not going to be there in the way that they were for 2025 as we look ahead into 2026.
Yeah, that makes sense. You definitely want to be conservative with that assumption and look at what could be the worst case scenario. Not to say that it's the worst case scenario, but look at that type of scenario. So if people do start pulling away and going with alternative insurance, what does that look like for the marketplace as we know it?
Yeah, it's a great question because when they expanded subsidies, they expanded the pool of insureds inside of that marketplace. And as they expand the pool of insureds, that kind of helps keep health insurance costs a little bit lower. So I think what's going to happen is if a lot of people lose their subsidies, there's going to be people who will drop their coverage. Maybe they'll go on their spouse's work coverage, or maybe
Mhm.
they'll go back to work and get employer provided coverage. There's a lot of different things they might consider doing. And if that happens and the pool shrinks again, those still in the pool, which includes my family, by the way, those still in the pool, their costs are likely to go up considerably. So we're talking about a potential loss of subsidy for certain income level people and significant premium increases at the same time. So we're talking about very much a double whammy as it relates to people who might be 60, 61, 62 years old and they're looking at retiring and not sure what to do with that puzzle piece of health insurance.
Yeah, so it looks like one way or another, this may impact all of us going forward. So for the client that does come in and sees this and says, I definitely can't retire now because of health insurance, what are you going to tell them?
Well, obviously we put together the puzzle pieces of retirement, which includes a lot of different factors. And we have a lot of people, a lot of nurses come in and they say, hey, I can't retire because I need health insurance. And
Mhm.
we show them every day that there are different ways that they might be able to afford health insurance. And of course, subsidies being one of those primary factors. But if they have the financial means to be able to absorb an increase in premiums, we're going to show them that because
Mhm.
we want you to retire on your own terms as far as what quality of life means to you. And yes, health insurance is a big factor and it's a big expense, but that's not the reason why you keep working. If you have the financial ability to choose, and maybe you're miserable at work, or maybe you just want to spend your time in a different way, we're still going to show you that it's financially possible, even if it's more expensive than it maybe was, in the past.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for clarifying some misconceptions and giving some great tips pertaining to this situation. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, we are seeing people as well who are federal employees and they've lost their income potentially, or
Mhm.
they're not sure when they're going to get paid. And for those people, I really think it emphasizes the point of how critical emergency reserves are. That is a foundational element of our hierarchy of cash flow as we do financial planning. And for, people who they're reliant on that federal government and, employment, if they have cash, they probably have less stress to be able to
Mhm.
navigate this whole and maybe they have credit card debt or maybe they're just living on the edge of spending everything they make. Now their income goes away, they're really feeling the pinch.
Yeah. Yes, I live in Maryland, as you know, so a lot of people here are federal employees and a lot of people have been impacted. And you are absolutely correct. That definitely highlights the importance of having those emergency reserves. Well, thank you so much. This was great. I hope that this helps somebody to look at this situation in a different light and to move forward. Until next time, have a good one.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.